Welcome to Happy Hour with Haley. I'm Haley Chura, and this week I am joined by professional triathlete out of Bend, Oregon, Fiona Moriarty. Fiona, welcome to Happy Hour.
It really is a happy hour. If I just get to chat with you, then I really do feel like I'm like on a tropical vibe or something. So happy to be here.
Well, and speaking of tropical vibe, you did bring a drink, and it does look a little like fancy tropically. What are you drinking?
Okay. Admittedly, as much as I love alcohol at times, it does not love my sleep schedule. Like those two things do not intersect well. So I like to make really fun mocktails. I don't even like the word mocktail. It's just the juice, honestly. It's a lot of blood orange juice and a little bit of San Pellegrino and lemon. So it kind of tastes like a little bit of an Aperol Spritz vibe, and it feels fancy. So that's what I'm
It
drinking.
has a good Aperol Spritz vibe. So I know you are an incredible baker, an incredible cook, incredible triathlete too, but are you like a little bit of a bartender on the side too?
I used to bartend, and the reason that I have a blood orange in this drink is because I'm currently making a blood orange olive oil cake. So I had like 9 pounds of different citruses. Not that I put all of that in the cake, but I had all this extra blood orange juice, and it was like perfect timing. So inevitably that timer is gonna go off, and I'll keep you in my ears, but I will have to run and take the cake out of the oven. So the
Oh
timing
my
is perfect.
gosh. I wish we were doing this in person. I'm a little bummed, but I also should have known when you said blood orange, you meant like actual blood orange juice, and it wasn't some kind of
Yes.
like blood orange seltzer that I had gotten at Costco kind of thing.
I mean, I do that as well, but yes, and my family for Christmas got me a juicer, not like machine juicer, but it's a citrus press. And first I thought it was broken. If you could see it, it has basically a built-in strainer. So when you crush the citrus, it catches all the juice at the bottom so you don't see anything come out first. And so
Oh.
I'm like hammering on this thing, thinking that it's broken. Like, oh man, they got me this stupid juicer. I don't know how to use it. And then I put so many oranges in there and they're blood oranges that it finally overflowed from like the underside of the juicer and went all over everything. It was kind of like a murder scene in our kitchen. But now that I know how to use it, I love it. It's way less
Wait,
messy and like a
so
great $9 invention.
yeah, I don't know if I've ever actually like juiced an actual blood orange. Is it, and it's like it's red juice then?
Uh, Oh my goodness. This is too good.
We're gonna do a tutorial here. This is lucky me.
Okay.
I invite you on my show, and now we are going to do a juicing
So this is
tutorial.
a blood orange.
Oh
The
wow.
inside of the
Nice.
orange
It
is
looks just
actually
like
red. And then
okay.
if you can't really see here, but like there is a cup built in underneath the citrus press. So when I squeeze it
Yeah.
down, it fills the underneath side of the juicer. So
Oh, very
very
cool. I
exciting
have a little
stuff.
juicer. It's not nearly as fancy, and I've never used it on a blood orange, so there's more things. And that is Leaf, your dog in the background, making an appearance. How is does Leaf like some blood orange cake? Do you share?
Share with Leaf anything at the moment. So Allie Brower is staying with us. It's like a full service enterprise here at the Moriarty Sutton household. So Allie came to get a bike fit with Josh, and then she's training with me over the weekend. And Leaf broke into her room this afternoon and ate an entire protein bar with chocolate and oatmeal and all the things in it. He's fine. I'm just more annoyed that he continues to steal people's stuff out of her bag, which was zippered. So Leaf does not get
Oh
any cake. He's already
man.
had his treat for the day.
Okay. Well, that's so cool. Allie's there. We should have had her make an appearance, but if she wants to, she's welcome. She's welcome to come on. I am
All good.
drinking a Roadhouse the Walrus Hazy IPA. This just looked like it had a kind of a cool can, and it's from
It does
Jackson,
have a cool
Wyoming.
can.
So I'm my other co-host Jocelyn Wong Neal will be so proud of me for making sure I continue the alcoholic drink legacy. I am retired, my sleep schedule means nothing. So I am drinking it in my Ironman champion glass because that my friend Lauren gave me, which this is either if I'm drinking from this glass, I'm either having a very good day or a very bad day. So it's either a great day because I'm like, woohoo, I won an Ironman once or twice. But Some days I need, like, as, like, a reminder that, like, "Oh my gosh, you used to be good at things, and 1 time or 2 times you won an
You
Ironman."
are good at things.
Today's one of the latter days,
I
unfortunately,
hope
but, I'm excited to get to chat with you, and we were talking a little bit before the show, and beverage topic of broccoli shots came up, and you have some experience with broccoli juice and trying to drink it, and can you tell us about
d
this and why it's all the
I
rage?
do. Honestly, I don't know what actually the, scientific benefits are. I should, but I know in the endurance world, taking a large amount of concentrated broccoli apparently has a similar effect to beet juice, or bicarb. So it helps either get rid of or decrease the amount of lactate that you're producing. And there are a couple of companies that or at least one that is producing this like concentrated broccoli juice shot, and they sent me a whole bunch, which was extremely nice. But I can't drink it. I tried and failed. I got one down, but it was not pretty, and I don't think I can, in good faith, continue to try. So I don't think my future is going to be sealed by whether or not I can consume 5 pounds of broccoli in one single shot. And I also have a terrible stomach. So the idea of drinking that and then trying to like execute a hard workout does not, it's not working for me. But I'm delighted for those that it works for.
I'm, like, a little out of the loop because you said this was something that Klæbo, the Norwegian gold medalist Nordic skier, swears by.
hmm
What did it taste like? I mean, if it's just a shot, you can't just, like, swallow it.
I mean, true. I would hope that you would be able to, but I took a sip of it first, and it's in one shot. It's supposed to be 5 pounds of broccoli condensed into this liquid format, and then they add a little bit of sugar and lemon, and I'm sure water. But the first sip is you get the lemon and sugar first with like almost as if you were eating um like steamed broccoli. So the flavor isn't like roasted broccoli, which is like pretty strong, but then it almost hits you in the back of the palate like, "Oh, broccoli." I couldn't.
Do
It
you
was
like
just
broccoli
hard for
on,
me to
like, a
get it
normal
down.
day? Like, are you a broccoli eater
I do,
on
but
a normal day?
I if it is roasted, perfected with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and garlic, absolutely, but I wouldn't like if I'm making a salad, I'm not just gonna, chop up some raw broccoli and just gamble my stomach condition on, eating raw cruciferous vegetables. For anyone like me that
Okay.
has, like, celiac and gut issues and things, like, really uncooked cruciferous vegetables are pretty tough, so I'm not gonna, like, seek it out anyways, but nevertheless, the taste was just maybe if I gave it another shot, I could, like, get over the shock of it, but they interviewed the CEO, I think, after the Olympics or something, because everyone was seen drinking it, and he said, like, outwardly said, "This is not made for taste, it's made for function." Like, he knows that it's nasty, and that's not the point.
Is it meant
So,
to be like, you take it right before a hard workout, right before a race, like bicarb? No.
no, and that's an it's apparently works on a different pathway than bicarb, so I don't know, maybe you could load up both and be, like, a super non-lactate producer. Coming to a endurance activity near you, someone double doing it and, I'm sure imploding their entire GI system. But you're supposed to take it 3 hours in advance, which I found to be another hard part of, like, the timing of it, because if I'm swimming in the morning and I have a hard set, I'm basically lucid 45 minutes before I get to the pool, and then on top of it, as triathletes, we're usually stacking things, and it was really hard for me to get the timing right to say, like, "Alright, I have a run workout." Sometimes it ends up moving around or, like, something from work comes up and in the way, or, like, your schedule is unpredictable, so it's hard to be like, let me just sit here and plan for 3 hours from now, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z activity, and then take that in on top of all the other stuff that we're trying to consume.
Yeah.
So, um, I'll figure it out because I still have a fridge of multiple cartons of it, but at the moment, I don't see it as a part of my supplement regime.
And this is an interesting topic, I think, when people hear about athletes seeking out sponsorship, whether that's product, whether that's cash, and people want to know, like, do you actually use the product? And are we gonna like, I mean, I hope we're not gonna like see an Instagram post next week of you hawking broccoli juice. Or is this, you drawn the line, you're not doing it. You're turning it down.
I I mean, if I could, like, somehow figure out how to take it and could see the effect on my workouts, sure, great. Like, no, I mean that truthfully, like, if I just managed to, like, somehow get it down and be able to, like, have these positively affected workouts, but I think you have to have a level of integrity of what things actually make sense to you as an athlete, as a person that you try to use or that are I always find the best partnerships are things that you're already using that you find a way to reach out to the brand and then like there's actually like I bought this thing with my own money and I would prefer if somebody gave it to me, but like I'm gonna use it anyways. And I've that's what I've really found with I mean my sponsor is Precision. I was buying it with my own money before I got sponsored. So I just always feel like that comes through authentically in how you talk about the product. And it always smells a little bit fishy when someone is like just trying to throw the next weird recovery doodad at you. Like if you use this weird magical hook thing, it's going to release your entire body and buy it for the low, low price of $39.99.
I really don't want my whole body released, but, maybe some people do.
Whatever that means.
Um, I think it's an interesting topic and, kudos to you for trying it but now even though this wasn't meant as an ad for broccoli juice, now I'm, like, intrigued. I'm like, "Ooh, maybe I need to try it." So maybe it worked out for that company overall. Fiona, you just raced Oceanside 70.3 a couple weeks ago, and that was your season opener, and I know a lot changed for you between Kona last fall, I think that was the last race you did, do I have that right? And
Mm,
then Oceanside?
mhm.
And
Yes,
you
sorry, I
were
just took a huge drink of my drink.
it's happy hour, you should be drinking. I think, and you were dealing last year with, like, a few health issues. I think you were anemic at one point and got an iron
Mhm.
IV, do I have that right? And you have
Yeah.
kind of solved some of those issues. You mentioned the GI issues and the celiac, and what is the status with that?
God, I sound like a laundry list of things that go wrong. But it is quite interesting that if you're a person that has an autoimmune disease, especially as you get older, um, they kind of hold hands and start to pull other things into the mix. Like if you have one, you're more likely to get others. So I last year I was super low iron. I raced Boise and I honestly should have just gotten off my bike, but I really try at any point, like, if I can finish, I will. I felt tired, like, sleepy, not just tired, but like, "Oh, if I just close my eyes for a little while on the bike, this could be okay," which probably should have been a signal that I shouldn't have kept running, and then I got tested afterwards for my iron being super low or for my iron, and it was, like, bottomed out. So I ended up getting an iron infusion, and I would say within a day or 2, I felt so much better, like, night and day kind of better. But I just had the feeling that there was something else kind of underpinning all of these things. I went and got blood work, done speaking of sponsorships, Rhythm Health, the one it's like micro blood testing. I hate the process of getting blood work done. I hate needles. I hate it all. I try to avoid it because it just seems very disruptive. And I, with my own money, paid for one of these like micro blood tests so that I could see like what my numbers looked like in between doctor's appointments. And some other weird stuff came up, like I had super high cholesterol, over 300, and I eat really healthy. Like I exercise a lot. Obviously, my iron was still low. And then there were a bunch of other really random things that were kind of off. And so that was the first sign to me that there was something else at play. And it was a little nerve wracking, but I kind of put it in the back of my mind because Kona was coming up and like so much of your attention and your focus and your drive is just like getting to the race and trying to execute the best you can and not necessarily kind of like looking beneath the surface to see what is lurking under there because you just want to race. And after the race, and throughout my racing during the year, I found I just couldn't recover. Like the idea of what some people do of like stringing together multiple races not only seemed unlikely because I was working, but I physically couldn't have imagined doing it. And it would take me weeks to come back from a race, whether it's an Ironman or a half. I just felt like it really knocked the stuffing out of me. And then after Kona, like I went through the period of like post race blues. Like I didn't have the best race. I did the best I could given the circumstances, but I was a little bummed out by my result, which is normal. And then
Mm.
it just
Will
kept
you remind me
lasting.
you finished, and I feel like you had a solid
Yeah.
result.
I mean, it was okay, but I got a 5-minute penalty, which was like I was riding in the place of my greatest potential. Like I was in the spot that I had, talked to my coach about being in. I was with the right
What was
group. I
that?
was doing the
What was
things
that
that
spot? Who were you with?
I was with Katrine Grossball. I'm
Okay.
probably saying her name incorrectly, but she ended up in like 14th. And I was really shooting to see if I could end up somewhere around 15th to 20th. And I thought that was pretty realistic. And I got my first penalty of my whole career, which I don't agree with, but that's okay.
Wait, was it a
And it
drafting
just kind of
penalty
like
from
knocked the,
with
yeah.
using Race Ranger? So this was like because we did have Race Ranger in Kona last year, so it was a drafting penalty.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And what I felt happened, what not that this was necessarily the trajectory we were on, but like I was leading, there was a pack of us that were riding together. I was leading the group. Then Katrine moved around me. We're all in a pace line. And I felt like my aerodynamics were such that I was going significantly faster on the downhill. So we started going downhill. And before I even knew it, I picked up speed and I had no time to actually get around her and make the move. The light went red and the ref was right there and gave me the penalty. Like I didn't even think I got the time to pass her. So I understand that like, hey, that's how the race goes, but like it just it's really difficult to come back from that. Like that's 5 minutes. I rode well, my power was great, but like if you don't have people to ride back from Hawaii with, like I was putting out so much energy just to like keep forward momentum. And then the first couple of miles of the run were pretty bad, probably because I had overextended myself biking backwards or biking back by myself. And then I kind of turned it all around mile 9 or so and actually ran well the second half of the marathon and caught a bunch of people. So it was fine. Like I'm happy
Did
with
you
how I
Where did you
stayed in
finish?
the game.
I should know this, but what place did you finish?
Uh I think 30th or so. I don't even know at that point. It's like whatever.
Okay.
Somewhere around 30th.
Which is okay, I think that's, like, an interesting thing where it is we forget, like, we forget. I've forgotten, you've forgotten, and in the moment, it's such a big, big deal, but I think that that's an interesting psychology there, but you went in with these health issues, you were having a solid race. We talk about the disruption of penalties. I mean, that is
Yeah, yeah.
a major argument, and hopefully now with Race Ranger being used more frequently, I think the refs and the athletes are more familiar with the rules. And so these early times,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of like, is this count as a penalty? Does it not? If it's red, do you have to make the pass? Like how many seconds do you have? And obviously back then it was 12 meters, now it's 20. So like things have even changed on the amount of time you have to make those passes. And so it
Yeah.
is interesting. And it's good for our listeners to hear though. Like what goes into the thought process of when you're riding with people and when you're using Race Ranger and how a penalty is more than just a 5-minute like blanket addition to your time.
Yeah, it's so probably somewhere more like in the neighborhood of 10 minutes in a race like when you're 12 meters apart and you're with a group. Like I was Jana Uderstad was I was riding with as well, and she came up to me after the race and was like, "You were riding so strong. I don't know how you ended up with the penalty." Like when she was in the pack, like she almost got dropped and managed to like hang on. And so I just remember thinking like, "Oh, like what if that hadn't happened?" But like whatever it did, I was bummed about the outcome, but not about my effort. And in the typical, I think if unless you get first or second, or you have a day that's completely surprising. Like you thought you were going to come in 20th and you finished in the top 5 or 10 and it surpassed your own expectations. Everyone will walk away from a race like that with a feeling a little bit like they could have done something better, or like they have a little bit of sadness about it. And you work through that in the weeks following. But what I found was that as I went back to work, it was like this persistent fog in my brain that I couldn't think as clearly as I normally could, that my emotions were at like a 15 out of 10, whether it was happiness or sadness. It just felt like extremely erratic for weeks afterward. And that was when I started to think like, okay, I had all this crazy blood work before the race. I did the race, and then now things seem kind of worse. Like I better go figure out what was underneath the surface and see what was happening. Um, and I did a whole bunch of additional blood work, and then it was basically like all lights and sirens flashing. You have Hashimoto's disease, which is just um, non-functional or a very sluggish thyroid. And your thyroid regulates a lot of things like your hormones. It has effect on your ability to absorb iron. So all those issues that I was having earlier on in the year are like related to this thing that was probably slowing down and telling me like, hey, I can't handle all this stuff that you're doing. And I just ignored it to the point that it just wasn't really working anymore. And it's an easily medicatable thing. Like I'm on whatever this medication is for the rest of my life, but I feel so much better. My gut has worked so much better ever since I got on it, which is awesome for racing. Yeah, like I didn't think it was going to be such a light switch, but it is infinitely better.
That's great. And so Oceanside was your first time racing since you kind of figured out what was going on. How did that race experience compare? It was an incredibly fast race. I think you finished 15th. It looked like a lot of fun out there, a lot of fast racing, fast day. Was it as much fun as it looked?
I mean, is racing fun? Sometimes it
Yes.
can be fun. Sometimes it can be fun. I There were so many positives. I will say because I have South Africa in 2 weeks, like my goals were more like practice my Ironman effort. So I felt probably that I took uh the headspace that I was taking into it was not like, you know, do my absolute best 70.3 that I've ever done, because I just wanted to go through the exercise of like testing out my stomach, seeing how things were going to go, almost working through the paces that I'm hoping to do in a couple of weeks instead of being like, this is going to be the 70.3 of my lifetime, if that makes sense, which is a kind of a weird place to be in such a high visibility race. Thanks to my sports psychologist, I can actually like manage those conflicting things and like not completely spin out. But yeah, I had a lot of good takeaways from it. I made some mistakes, but the point was to make these mistakes at this race and not at the one I'm doing in 2 weeks.
Is that your olive oil cake or the alarm? Go get your cake. Go get your cake. Okay. The cake is cooling and will be ready for you when you're done podcasting. So, I want to hear more about this sports psychologist, and is that something you knew you've added recently?
I added his name is Mikkel and he lives in Denmark. And so that is one of the harder parts about it, is that I talked to him at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, usually before a long day of triathlon or triathlon and work. But it has been for me the biggest difference in how I execute. I cannot thank him enough for providing a lot of times like just rational frameworks to what we often are feel almost out of control. Like when you're in a racing scenario, there are so many things that you can be thinking about. It is very difficult to be intimidated. It's so difficult to take your entire race plan and throw it out the window because you're trying to like manage all of these really hard emotions. And I started working with him about a year and a half ago, and ever since I have become a much better swimmer, that's for sure. I got second at Brazil, and I think a lot of it was because of the tools he gave me to manage when I'm seriously uncomfortable and or you feel horrible and you still have to keep going. Like all of these things that everybody goes through in any given race. I remember riding down the highway in Brazil, and we have this my nails are still blue. We have this thing where he calls it his blue focus zone, where like there are a couple of things, cues that you should be thinking about over swim, bike, and run. So with swimming, I'm trying to think about like what is my core doing? Is my shoulder in line? The things that I have to focus on, and I don't think about anything else. If I'm in the blue focus zone, I'm thinking about like these two specific cues. If it's cycling, it's like how does my foot feel on the pedal? Tucked in, and I don't think about anything else. And when I'm thinking exactly about what is those things, I'm in my blue focus zone. If it's orange or red, that means I'm thinking about what other people are doing. So if you're in a big master's swim, sometimes you're like, well, I'm too slow or I'm too fast or I'm catching up to the person around me or I don't feel very good. Like those kind of thoughts he would consider in like the orange and red focus zones. So I paint my nails blue so that it reminds me like when I'm in aero and I'm looking down at my nails, like what do I need to be thinking about? And am I having like productive thoughts? And in Brazil, I broke the bike course record and I felt terrible. I wanted to pull my bike over to the side of the road and quit. I was having so many like, unproductive thoughts. And it was just like looking back down at my fingers and being like, okay, all of this is noise. Like, I just need to think about what is my foot doing on the pedal? Am I tucked in? And like, am I fueling myself properly? And it just totally got me out of like one of the many spirals that I think an athlete can go down in a race. And it's not that I don't have those moments anymore. I just know how to like work through them a lot better. And it's been the best thing that, other than just training more, like for my performance.
Does Mikkel work in tandem with your coach? Because I believe your coach is also Danish.
Yes. So they're like, they don't work together per se, but it's like know each other and are friends. And so if Casper, who's my coach, feels like you would be a good fit for working with Mikkel, then he'll recommend like it's not you don't have to, but like they obviously know each other, and that's how I met him.
I think it is an interesting part of the sport, and it sounds like this psychologist you're working with specifically is it does work with triathletes, and I know that sometimes it's hard for athletes to find that person, and so that if they do want help, it is hard to find that person. It sounds like there's a lot of good synergy between your sports psychologist and your coach.
And that was important because it's not I'm not going to Mikkel to like talk about my relationship with my coach. Like that's just one thing that's not a part of it. Like the point is for me to become a better athlete and work through the things that are getting in my way of like reaching the next level of performance. And so like let's take Oceanside for example. Oceanside was a super stacked field, and for somebody like me, my focus is more on Ironman racing, and like that is 100% true. But I am going to race against these other people, all of whom are going to be competitive and want to give their best. But what I talked about with Mikkel is that that race is as important to me as it is important to anyone else on the starting line that has a higher position than I do. Like I have to be willing to be competitive and to own my own race and to care as much about my my deservedness to be there. And I know that maybe the top folks aren't thinking about that. Like, I don't think Taylor Knibb is necessarily worried that she doesn't belong at a race. Maybe she does. But like, if you are somebody that's in the middle of the field and who wants to make progress forward toward the real pointy end, the place where it really matters, you have to be able to say, like, I'm on a starting line with all of these other women and I deserve it or I belong just as much as anybody else. And the work I have done with him is what has allowed me to like step more into that, because I always had something in the back of my mind of like, well, I'm still working and I'm also doing this triathlon stuff. Like, I'm not as good as other people. Like, maybe I would let someone like start in front of me in the swim and go in the second line. And like, that's not productive. Like, it's my race too. And I deserve to put my effort on the line as much as anybody else. So that's just like one example of something that we would work through, because I would probably tell him that I'm nervous or I'm going to get beaten or da 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 da, like the thoughts that you have that are not necessarily helpful leading into the race. So it's been pretty neat to see how much I've changed.
When you planned your season, how did you decide to do Oceanside and then South Africa?
Convenience? For at least the Oceanside. No, no,
Not
no,
South
not
Africa.
that, not that. That was,
It's the same weekend. It's the day after Ironman Texas, right? So the Woodlands would have been a little bit more convenient to Bend, Oregon.
okay, fine. I don't mean convenience on South Africa. That would be more like inconvenience. So, like, whichever of these is the hardest for me to get to, I will seek it out. No, Oceanside, like, honestly, I would have preferred to go to a lower key race so that I could racing and racecraft in a way that didn't feel so loaded. Would have loved it, but there aren't many options. Dallas was too early. Uh, it's further away, and so if I'm also, like, financially, if I'm gonna pay a whole bunch of money for a flight to South Africa, it was easier and cheaper for me to get to Oceanside. So, like, I've had I had my best race at Brazil, but I did Jesolo in Venice 2 weeks or 3 weeks beforehand, so this kind of layout was something that worked well for me before, and I think you really unless you're practicing racing all of the time or almost, like, getting the opportunity to race very frequently, um, there is a difference in skill set and intensity of like what you do in a race. And I don't think you can practice that just in the like every day of training. So it was really important to me to get something in before we just, traveled all the way around the world and kept our fingers crossed for the best.
And why South Africa? I know you have raced in South Africa before. Did you want to go back? Is this a special place for you?
Well, it is a special place. I had met my now husband there, so it's nice that we get to like go back. Many many years later and many triathlons later, and do double the distance. But I picked South Africa, and I think I hope this doesn't come across in a negative way, but you have to be smart and strategic about where you choose to race. As convenient as Ironman Texas would be for me to get to, I am not I'm not stupid, and I look at that start list and all of the people who do not have their Kona slots, and I'm trying to make a living. So if I look at that start list and have the best day of my life, I could still end up in 12th, 10th. Like I think Grace Tech, who just got fourth at Oceanside, I think is ranked like number 11th on the start list. So it's the depth of the field is just astounding. So why would I take one of my like bullets, so to speak, for the year and spend it in Texas when the uphill battle to like beat somebody like Grace or Kate Curran or cat, like, it's just I'm just trying to be realistic about where I'm going to get the most value for me racing. And the field for South Africa is not weak. There is so many women that were kind of between, I would say, like 10th and 30th in Kona. Like, it seems like there's a very strong kind of core of European pros. But there are 18 of us versus 30. And I'm also a strong cyclist, and the bike course for South Africa really advantages or is meant for strong cyclists. And I'm hoping that that is a better match for my skills because Texas is, even with the draft difference, which is helpful, I think it's just not the right race. Oh, and it's hot as hell. So, as your local friendly Irish person, I'm not going to pick a hot race if I can avoid it. So yes, number of
Understood.
reasons.
Understood. Ironman Texas is, of course, the Ironman Pro Series, which means it will have broadcast and it has higher prize money. It has Pro Series points. And so that does invite more attention, I guess, and a different kind of field. It has 4 Kona slots. How many are in South Africa? I should know this.
Four.
But there are 4. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's interesting. That is very interesting, and I think Texas has 4. I should definitely know
I
that.
thought that was
You can tell
six.
I have not done, as much studying yet as I does it have 6? Okay, maybe it has 6. So New Zealand had 4, so maybe Ironman Texas has 6. I'm gonna look it up for us right here. But, that I have not like I said, I haven't done uh, my my homework for my
Your
commentary
prep your
that
prep work,
yet.
yeah.
No, I haven't. I saw the start list, and I definitely was impressed. I was impressed. And I think that was, yeah, that was very exciting. But okay, looking it up right now, You're right. Texas has 6 slots. Okay, 6 men, 6 women, $175,000 prize purse. But you're right. Ironman South Africa, 4 men, 4 women, and 150,000 prize purse. That's I can see the logic behind your decision there.
And it was actually one of the things that I wrote into, like, we get a survey after Pro Series events, and after this 70.3, the typical survey comes out and they ask, what generally would you suggest for us to improve? And one of the things I wrote was the prize purse. I don't think they're going to care what I have to say about the prize purse, but if you look at the depth of that field, it was like a championship level race. And I was chatting with Grace after the race, and I asked her how much the prize purse was for fourth place. The woman ran a 78-minute half marathon for fourth place, and she walked away with $3,000. And I just don't think you can properly get fields like that in while also not compensating athletes like for their effort. And so looking at a $150,000 Ironman prize purse is far more likely to at least cover the cost of my trip if I have a good race, or, like, I don't know, defray some of it, versus Oceanside, which was like a net super loss. So I just think that.
That is interesting. I guess they justify it by that year-end bonus that the Pro Series points have, but I honestly didn't realize that the prize purses were so similar. First place in
Mm,
Texas gets $28,000, first place in South Africa gets $25,000. Both races pay to 10th, and so 10th place in Texas, $2,000, 10th place in South Africa, 1,500. That is super interesting, super
like,
interesting.
obviously, it's a much bigger expense to get there, but, like, especially with the way flight prices and things are now, it's not cheap to fly anywhere domestically either. And so it just seemed like, also, if you think about, if I do well at South Africa, I think I could give the podium a real shot. And what that means then in sponsorship, like, you then can go to your sponsors. And so the thing that you get from the race then multiplies. And so why would I, somebody like me or in my position, turn around and say, like, maybe that you want to get ninth or 10th, but that doesn't help you, like, try to make a living until the end of the year, if that comes out in Pro Series points. So I don't know. I think it's just a hard. The way people sustain a living in our sport is quite hard, but if you're not being strategic about how many times you're racing and where you're racing, I think you're leaving a lot of opportunities kind of unturned.
Yeah, so you are not chasing Pro Series points this year, even though you did get you got some in Oceanside, that's not your goal.
Um, I I am not. I don't think. Maybe if I had done it last year or the year before when it was new, whichever year it was the first year, like, I would have had more of an opportunity to, like, take something meaningful away from it. But because more people are interested in it at this point, I would much rather try to compete for higher placings and fields that I'm going to be competitive with, and see how I can go from there. Because at least the way that sponsorship works, I don't think anyone's going to ask if I got 20th in the Pro Series and like, want to celebrate that. It's just like the two things are still a little bit opposed, or not quite aligned. So
Interesting.
that's why
Do you
I'm,
think
like, more interested in chasing competitive races for me.
do you think it's good that there are multiple paths that way, that you can
Sure.
kind of choose your own path and have a different season? There isn't one right way.
I think it's necessary, and frankly, maybe they could do more of it. Like, we talk about it in my household a lot. Like, if you look at other sports, let's say soccer in the Premier League, you have multiple levels of tiered leagues. So if you're new and you're trying to build up a team, you're not going to be competing against Manchester City and Manchester United and all the, like, super top teams, and you have to work your way up. Also, if you're in the top leagues and you have a crappy season, you can be relegated to the league below. So it allows people at the level that they're at to be competitive within a certain range. Obviously, the most money is in the top league, but I think it would help foster more competitiveness within, like, levels, because it's really hard when you're an up and coming pro to find, like, almost momentum. There are, of course, a couple of people who defy the odds and just, like, surprise everybody and come right out of the gate and just win everything, but I think it's more true that it takes years to like figure out the style of racing, to try to understand the pack dynamics and how to move within the field, but you're doing it while getting chewed up and spit out at like, at a pretty big race that kind of it can make you feel like you're not making any progress. And so it might be worth considering, like, do you have multiple tiers of racing, which I think the Pro Series is kind of causing by default or by accident, but it's not really formalized. Of like some races have, they're harder to get to, or like have smaller fields, and those are better for people that are just trying to be competitive, or like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but they are
Yeah,
like
no, I
super
think it
competitive
does.
fields, and I think that
I think the harder to get to, sometimes that's like such a barrier to entry, and it does take a certain
yeah.
type of person who's willing to fly to another country with their bike, and especially if they don't speak the language, or there's, a lot of hurdles to that. But I
S-
do think it also
yeah.
can be very rewarding, and I kind of used triathlon during my career to travel the world and to see some new places and experience different cultures, and I'm very thankful for those experiences, and I think they have changed me, or changed who I am, and I am really thankful. And so there are times where that is worth it. Getting through that hurdle, it helps you in other ways of life as well. But uh when you talk about South Africa, I hate asking about like what's next after that, but I know that your season can't be ending in April. Are you traveling anywhere else during this year, or are you going to race more in the North American circuit?
Well, I feel like I might have to race more on the North American circuit with the new USAT credit license criteria. But
That just came out, and
my
so have you
yes.
I admit I haven't looked into that very much. Uh, Again, it's on my list to
Girl.
do list along with, studying for Ironman Texas. I think, it sounds like you've actually looked into this quite a bit. It just came out, this new criteria for racing pro as I am a US triathlete.
Yeah, and it's this is like all kind of part of the same discussion, and I just want to close out the previous one by saying it's not that I think when you go to races in faraway places that should guarantee you a small field. That's not, no, that's not what I mean. It's more, I think if you set aside certain races to be at a different tier level, then you might give people the opportunity to like really risk and grow within the professional field, so that they, there's a difference between getting second and third and like feeling as though you are competing for a win at a lower level, and then actually taking that skill, and then it will make the fastest racing even faster because you have people that know how to be competitive within a higher tier, which then brings us to this USAT situation, because based on the new rules that they have put out, it would pretty much wipe out the bottom half of the women's professional field as things stand. So if you take an Oceanside and applied the current criteria to the placings, which is that everyone would have, those that would maintain a pro license would have to be within 12% of the winner. So if Taylor got 401 and change, anyone that's within 12% of their time would be considered a pro. That would mean that I am not considered a pro because I am 30 seconds outside of 12%. So it is, I think only the top 10 or so of the Oceanside field would have requalified for a pro card, which is pretty stringent. And the other really interesting, and I hope they change the criteria for, is that the majority of races that they're considering eligible to qualify would have to be US based, not international. And like many of us, like we race all over the world. Why would, if I go to Australia and get first at Ironman Australia, why would that not qualify me to be a professional? That seems one-sided. I know that, or I would imagine that they're trying to prevent the whole like fly to Malaysia at a race that has only 3 people in it and somehow you requalify because you flew to a faraway place with a tiny field. But it could have some really far-reaching implications for a sport, and specifically on women, that is still developing. The men's field in Texas has 82 people. The women's has 28 or 27. Like, do we really need to cut people from the women's field at this point? I would argue no. We need to be nurturing it and trying to build it. But should we maybe not have 82-person fields? I don't know. So that's at least what I have seen of it so far. Allie has been much better about reading all of the criteria and understanding it. But it seems pretty severe.
Like I said, I haven't read into it quite as much, and but I am, I'm looking at that pro race calendar right now, and there are, some races in North America that are not pro series races that have lower prize money that theoretically you wouldn't see Taylor Knibb show up at likely. And so it does seem like maybe there could be some strategy in where you try to race to get within 12% of that winner's time. It's been a long time since I qualified to race as a pro, and I do remember that the year that I wanted to qualify as an age grouper, I think at that time I don't know if you had to race in the US, but I was only racing in the US, and
Mm,
I think it had to be like top 3 amateur at an Ironman branded event, and I got 4th amateur at Ironman Texas. And then you had to be top 5 at 70.3 Worlds, and I got 6th amateur. And then you had to be top 10 in Kona, and I got 11th. And so it was this fascinating thing where I was like, wow, I'm not going to qualify. And I did end up qualifying. I won age group nationals, an Olympic distance race. I qualified for my pro card. I was then able to race Ironman Arizona, and I finished 7th in the pro field. And I do think sometimes I think some of those categories, like I'm like, what if I hadn't qualified, and then, and I did go on to finish top 10 in world championships, and I think race fairly competitively, win a couple races. And
mm,
but I'm like, if I had never qualified, like, you might have missed out on me just because of like I raced very consistently well as an amateur, but I just kind of missed out on that a lot of times. But
yeah.
I mean, I hopefully over amount of time, I did end up meeting that criteria. But I agree that I think a bigger net isn't necessarily bad, and I don't know what the maximum field size is. Like I don't know enough to say like do we have too many pros. I for me when I saw that Texas start list with 82 men, only as a commentator, I'm like, oh, no. And they all wear the same thing. Am I going to be able to tell them apart? So I'm very selfish in that, mostly as I'm just picturing all these men coming into transition and trying to like say their names and who they are. But then I'm like, I'm up for the challenge. So let's see if my brain and my mouth can handle it. But I think it it there's a lot of I have a lot of like cultural thoughts on why there are so many more male pros than women. I don't think it's necessarily a triathlon problem or a pro elite qualification problem. I think it's a little bit more cultural.
Mm,
That's how I see it. And so
sure.
it's a systemic issue that has nothing to do. I mean, it has something to do with triathlon, but I think it's actually like a cultural thing about do we allow women to try things and to maybe fail at things or to do things if they aren't going to be a champion. I think that we often don't allow women that as much. And I think that's something as a culture, in my little way, every time I'm like, it is very cool to get 20th place. Because I got 20th. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I got 20th in Kona last year, and I find I'm very proud of that result.
I would be too. I should say it's 12% of a championship field and then 8% of a
Okay.
regional race. Not like it's not that much, but it is
Okay.
like a
That's
difference.
interesting that they
And
did actually like identify it for the championship races. Interesting. It
so
also
like
seems
there
like
is a little bit of a cushion.
you would
Go ahead.
want to do like a faster race course then, right? Like you're going to want to do like a Texas or a flatter course cuz then the delta is going to be smaller theoretically.
I, and I think another the fact that they include age group nationals are like very domestic based races to me seems like they want to push more USAT like style racing, and that's
Mhm.
fine. I understand. I agree with you that it feels more systemic that women are not racing. Also, they're the primary caregivers. They are the of people having babies, and so there is not as many affordances or like as much encouragement for someone who's, let's say, I don't know, 48 to do her first triathlon. Like I think it is very cultural in how much women are brought to or encouraged to participate in these things. And I really like the framing that you gave it of like, you can do stuff that you're not going to be A plus plus at, but it's still rewarding, and you don't have to be the best. You can do it for the experience, and that's still valuable enough. Um, yeah, that's a really good point.
Anyway, we'll have to see how that plays out. And you have to qualify every 2 years, requalify every 2 years now, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that your results from the year that you qualify are what matter. So if I am good for, like, I've renewed my license, so I should be good to 2027, but any of my results from this year won't matter. It's has to be the calendar year that you're applying for, I think.
Interesting. Oh, that's like what if you get hurt? That's a little bit of a scary one, but I have found in my just in my years in the sport, the USA Triathlon is usually pretty athlete friendly and reasonable, and so
Mm,
I'm sure if things do seem like they are not working, there probably will be an adjustment
mm.
or, I can hold out hope, but this is an interesting change and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, um, but so I guess it doesn't matter if you race domestically this year, but it sounds like you are planning to race, in the United States later this year.
I mean, hopefully Kona. That's the plan. So that's in the United States. I At least for now, it depends on how I do in South Africa, but the plan is to go to Roth in the summer and do Challenge Roth. Um, 2 weeks prior to that is 70.3 Elsinore, which is in Denmark, and, as I've kinda mentioned, my entire coaching staff at this point is in Denmark, so it would be nice to actually go and, like, see people, see my sports psychologist in person, and, like, get to know a little bit about the country where, like, the majority of people I talk to on a daily basis actually live, and get to, like, do that as a tune-up before Roth in the summer, but, like, that's the tentative plan.
So, okay,
Everything
so
could
just
get thrown out
Kona,
the window.
yeah. So you're gonna, like, do a European tour. How did you end up with this Denmark coaching staff from Bend, Oregon? How did that
Um,
connection come up?
I know. It is kinda weird. When I was looking for a coach, I had seen I I had seen Casper kind of with other athletes that I raced against, but what really drew me to him was he was on a podcast talking about George Goodwin, who is an athlete who did kinda, like, burst onto the scene, I think in Challenge Daytona, like, out of nowhere. I think he either got 3rd or 2nd or something, and Casper became his coach after George almost left the sport. I guess he like really struggled after, you do really well, you get all these sponsorship deals and you think that's kind of it. You have achieved the peak of all the things, but it comes with a lot of pressure. And I just remember listening to the way he talked about athletes and how to actually work with them as human beings, and that the sport is both incredibly technical and precise, but also like the entire subjective side to it matters just as much. And that's what I was looking for, was a balance of somebody who is as interested in what my lactate numbers are saying, and also what is my mental state as a person and how I'm executing based on my daily life. So I talked to a couple of different people, but he was the one that I thought had the right level of rigor and worked with other pros and knew how to get me to like the next level of where I needed to go, but with like humanity and heart, that I was not going to be with a robot. And so that was really what drew me to him. And honestly, the funny cultural like difference between me being Irish and American and him being Danish is comes up with the best conversations because he's very, to the point, and sometimes my sarcasm might get lost in the mix at times. Like, it's just funny to work through how we communicate with each other, and I have really treasured and felt lucky that we have conversations where he'll say things like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong about X." And that ability to have a back and forth with a coach and an athlete where it is a real relationship and one person could say, "Hey, I shouldn't have, like, I misjudged that," or that you can really be honest with each other has just made the whole thing like really impactful.
I'm glad that's working out. It sounds like you have a lot of synergy. You have a lot of things going for you. You are healthy. You've brushed off those cobwebs in Oceanside. You have all those flights planned. Hopefully, you have some good books, music, movies, or just sleep planned for those long flights to South Africa.
Oh
Fiona, I'm
God.
excited. Right after Texas finishes, we probably can start watching, following and tracking you on in South Africa. So it'll be a big weekend for triathlon, April 18th and 19th, coming up here in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for joining me, and best of luck. I will be cheering.
Thanks, Haley.